everybody, welcome back to the channel. The most requested video I've had in many weeks has been, how did you create this fence? It looks like a old, rundown, scary, dilapidated chain link fence. And so today we're gonna go on a short tour, a short tutorial on exactly how to build this fence. So with that, let's jump right in and I'll show you the tools that you're gonna need to start this project. Okay, so laid out in front of me, I've got just about every tool that you're going to need to use in order to complete the project the way that I did it. Now, there's 100 ways on YouTube to do this, but I'm going to show you the way I did it. And so first, you're going to need some solder. Now, solder comes in various different sizes, right? This is really thin solder that I would use to solder small wires or any kind of wiring together. This is not what I would use to make this fence, but I just wanted to show you the difference. You've got some thicker solder that is good for soldering, at least starting to weld this project together. So I will be using this. And then to actually build the fence out of, this is the solder that I will be using. This is a much thicker solder. Again, I got this at Hobby Lobby in the stained glass window section. And this is what we'll be using today to actually build the frame to get the fence started. So we'll be using those two types of solder. You'll also need some material. This is called Khul. I believe it's Khul. It is a fabric that is used similar to what they make wedding veils and things like that out of. It comes in all different colors, all different shapes, and all different textures. This is more of a silver. It's got the perfect texturing for a chain link fence. So this is what I picked up. I got this at, I believe it was Hobby Lobby as well. And so picked this up to use as the fence. And so what I've done ahead of time is I've cut out a piece that we're going to use on this particular project. So you'll need just a square piece long enough to fit the fence that you're creating. We'll get back to this in a moment. Then you're going to need something to attach all that with, and what I've got is Gorilla Glue gel super glue. And then you've seen this before. This is the accelerator that is used to spray on the glue to dry it almost instantaneously. So you'll need that. And then after we're done with the gluing, you will need to paint the project, and I want to paint this. Now, you don't have to paint it, and I'll show you that. If you're looking for just a normal silver chain link fence, you've got it when you're done. If you want to make it rusted the way I did for the Pennywise diorama, you'll need a shade of brown and a shade of orange. It doesn't really matter which shades, as long as it's a brown and an orange. You'll mix those. And I'll show you how to do that. I apply it with a sponge, so we'll wet our sponge down and then use the brown paint and then the orange paint and then maybe a little back and forth to make the rust color. And then once it's all done, before you paint it, you'll obviously want to cut it out to trim it down to your normal size. And you're going to need a soldering iron. I've got this soldering iron here. It's really small. It's pretty cheap. I believe I got this at I think Ace Hardware or something a while back. Probably, I don't know, somewhere between $10 and $20. Not much. They do get very hot, so if you've never used one, obviously you don't touch anything down from the shield. They get really hot, and that's what we're going to use to start melting and gluing sort of everything together. So with that, I'll clean up my workspace just a little bit, and we will get started. So with that, what I want to do first is determine how long do I want my fence. And I'm only going to do a small fence today just to kind of show you the demonstration. So we'll say we want the fence to be this long in length. Now, I'm not measuring anything. I want it to have 3 posts on it. So there is a top piece. Okay, I'm going to need a similar bottom piece. Okay, so we'll do the scientific way of measuring here. This is very complex and complicated. I may have to step through it a couple of times or not. Just basically hold that up close and cut your second piece. So there's the top and the bottom rails. Okay, and then how tall do we want our fence? Okay, so if we want our fence to look about like that, and I'll say I want the fence to be, I don't know, about that tall will be fine. I want it to be a little, I want something to be able to poke down into the styrofoam, so we'll cut the poles a little longer than we need them. And I'm gonna make 3 of these poles. So same concept. Okay, sort of measure, they don't have to be perfect. Again, you're making a spooky fence, or not. I mean, you could use this for anything. So try to get it as close as you possibly can. All right, and then about like that. Okay, so then we're done with the big solder. We can set that aside and we start working on our frame. Now, the first thing I want to do is either straighten this perfectly straight or bend it in the shape that I want the fence to be. Now, I'm just going to keep this somewhat of a straight fence. So that'll be the top. I do the same for the bottom. Okay, and then I'm going to readjust this camera a little bit so you can see exactly what's going on here. Okay, so that's the fence there. Okay, and then the first pole is going to be fairly straight as well. Now again, if you wanted these poles bent in any certain shape like I did on the Pennywise tutorial, you can just bend them in any shape that you want and then solder them in place. But for this demonstration, we're going to keep things fairly normal and fairly straight. And so we'll put that about like that. Straighten this piece here. And about like that. And then straighten this piece here. And that will be our center pole. I'll show you a trick to when we get to the middle pole. So about like that. So I've laid out my fence. Now I've seen a lot of other people saying, well, you need to now tape everything down so it doesn't move. I don't do any of that. You're certainly welcome to do that, but that's not what I do. So what I do is I get my other solder ready, and I'm going to show you this in real time. So we're going to take the soldering iron. Now I'm working a little bit backwards here with the soldering gun, but as you can see, I'm just going to touch the solder here, get it to start working, and then put a little drop right there. Okay, that one is done. That's tight, okay? I'm going to do the same for the top. Oops, now if it moves, which it might, actually here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the bottom off, take that piece off as well, and put this piece right back up where I want it, and solder that into place. Okay, that should hold for now. And see, I'll show you what I mean by that. This piece, it's already together. Now I need to solder the other side, but you can see this side is already together. Now we'll come through and strengthen this, but that's how it looks initially, right? And then I'll take my third piece, get it to where I want it, about like that. And then come right back in with my soldering gun and solder that joint into place. Okay, that should hold. Now, what I will do is I will turn this over, okay, and reapply some solder on this side just to get a good coat on there. Now you'll notice that I'm not trying to melt the big solder. Although you can, and I'll show you in an instant where you might want to do that. But I'm just sort of putting the solder in there and then moving it around once it's in there, just to kind of get it on the edges of where I want it to stay. And you can just kind of fan it out like that. It's more of a technique, and you'll get better as you practice with it. But that is the fence posts that are all soldered. It's not going anywhere. It's pretty sturdy already. right? And then here is a technique. Now, what I didn't tell you is I've got a piece of wood down here. You don't want to do this on your countertop. You don't want to do it on a cutting mat. This is very hot. The solder is obviously very hot. And so you want to kind of keep it away from that. So I'm doing this on a piece of wood that I had laying around. Now for this here, this can be a little tricky, especially in the middle. And I'll show you how I get around that. So for the first one here, I'm just going to solder this joint in place. Okay, so sometimes you get a little hiccup and you get this, right? So what you can do is just take your pliers, cut that right off, okay, and do it again. That's the good part. If you mess up, you just do it over. Nobody's really counting, it doesn't matter. It's a scary rundown fence, or it's not. Nobody will know the difference when you're done with it. I'm having difficulties with this one, guys. So what I'm going to do is bend this in a little bit. Now you gotta be careful, that can be hot. So I'm gonna bend this in a little bit, lay this on top of where I want it, and just kind of start melting this down. Now this is the technique where you gotta be a little more careful. I'm melting the whole thing. See how it drops? I'm gonna melt this one to kind of get it level. Okay, so I'm melting now the big solder. Okay, so you'll see that melt. That's okay, that's what we want. We want to get it down in there and then let it dry like that. I want to melt this piece off. Okay, so that piece is down there. Add a little bit more here. Okay, that piece is now there, okay? Okay, so those are now complete, and now we just need to do this one. Now, you could have not had that middle piece there. I mean, you could certainly cut 2 of those for the bottom if you want. It doesn't really matter. There's no right or wrong way to do that. Just whatever you choose is fine. Okay, so let's finish these. I don't know if you're able to see all this or not. I apologize. This is okay. Fill this in a little bit here. It looks a little low. Okay, let that dry for half a second. Okay, so now I'm going to come back and do this side. You always do both front and back to make sure you got a real good secure fit. Kind of mold that through. Same thing here. You'll see this look a lot different, hopefully. Okay, I'm pretty pleased with the way that's turned out, so I think I'm gonna call that done. Let's pick this up. Now, I'm not gonna touch it at the bottom because it's still hot, but this is, I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's soldered, it's stable, it's steady. I'm showing you that. It's still a little warm down at the bottom, but this is your fence. Okay, these can be trimmed. Matter of fact, they're probably a little long, so I would trim those to kind of stick down into my foam, something about like that. And that way when you bury it, this will be close to the bottom of the diorama or the vignette, and no one will know any different. Okay, so we can get rid of all of that. And now what we want to do, that's cool enough, we want to make this as flat on one side as possible. So I'm pushing everything down to the best of my abilities here. And, okay, so I'm going to turn this around facing me. It doesn't matter which way you see it, it's all the same. And then, so that's the flat side. So that's the side. And actually, you know, this is a better side to work with because it doesn't have all those marks. So I'm going to make the other side incredibly flat. Okay, and solder is very pliable, so you can bend it to get it to stick the way you want it. Okay, that's pretty flat. So that is going to be the side that I glue, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clear my workspace off. I'm going to get my glue ready. I'm going to get my accelerator ready. Now this accelerator, I love it, but it stinks to high heaven, and it is sort of very greasy. So just know that going in. It's not going to be great. I'm going to unplug my soldering iron here so don't need that any longer. Get that out of the way. So yeah, this stinks pretty good. And so, okay, so the gel is going to go right along where you want the fence. So for us, we're just gonna, you can see as well as I can here, so we're just going to start spreading some gel along the bottom row of this fence, right on top, right up the sides. Okay, gel is on there. Now we're going to get our Khul material. Set this aside for a second. We're going to get our Khul material. Okay, so you've got to work very quickly here because what's going to happen is once we put this on and put the accelerator on it, it's going to stick to this wood. So we've got to squirt it and then essentially, excuse me, pull it right back up. So we have got a couple of paper towels here just in case, because I got super glue on my hands already. That's awesome. So super glue is on. I'm going to put it close to the top of one edge so I don't have as much to cut. So right about there. And then put it straight down. Now you can wear gloves or whatever floats your boat, but just be, you know, however you want to do it. That is on. Accelerator is getting ready to go on. We don't have long once this goes on. Okay, so now, see, it's already starting to stick to the glue, to the wood. We're just going to take this up and set it aside, set it back down, see if it's going to stick there. It's not. It looks pretty dry. It's dry already, guys. It's crazy. The accelerator is amazing with super glue. I mean, you saw it real time. That's as quick as it works. There's no, I guess there is some magic. I'm not sure how it works, but it's done. It's dry. It's not coming back off. I mean, you can see the fence is hanging. So right now, all I have to do is grab some scissors and start cutting out this fence. Now, I'm gonna hold here and cut down here, right along the edge of the fence. Okay, same on this side. And you can certainly trim this material ahead of time so you don't have this much extra, right? And then right along the bottom edge of the fence. There's really no easy way to do this on camera. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. I apologize, I'm looking at this and not the camera, so. Okay, a little more trim, but that's it in a nutshell. There's your fence. It's as easy as that. That's all there is to it. You've got extra material, you can hang on to that or throw it away. But that is your fence. Now, you can trim the top. I like a few little things sticking up personally, just to give it the detail, but you don't have to. You can trim this all the way down to the railing if you want to where you've got now a normal chain link fence, right? That's how it looks. And that's pretty quick, guys. You're seeing me do this in real time. There's no editing, there's no moving this around. This is how long it takes. It's pretty quick. And that's one fence that goes right into your foam. And if you don't want to paint it, you want this look, you're done. It's chain link fence. It's not going to go away. It's not going to, and it's sturdy, it's robust. So there you have it. But if you want to paint it and you want it to look like it's rusted, let's take a look at how we're going to do that. So I'm going to grab a paper plate and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I've got the fence, I've got our paints, and I've got a sponge that I've wet down. You can use any kind of sponge. You can also use a paintbrush. It doesn't really make a difference. Shake our paint up a little bit, and then a little bit of brown. That's plenty. A little bit of orange. We'll save that for last. Okay, so with that, let's take the brown. And before I do this, let me actually put a couple of paper towels so I don't ruin my wood. I don't want that all painted up. Okay, it's probably be a little easier to see anyway. Okay, so we take our brown and we just start dabbing it onto the fence. On the Khul as well, you want everything to be brown. Okay? You see how quick this is. It doesn't take long. You don't have to cover every piece of the fence. I mean, it's okay for a little bit of the silver to show through, because, I mean, the rust may or may not be over the entire fence. I'm going to give it a good coat here. And if you want, you could flip it over and do the same thing on the back, although I'm not going to do it as thick. I'm just going to finish out what I've got on the sponge here. Okay, give it a little bit more, I guess. All right, so that's probably good. Okay, so now we'll flip that back over. And now we do the same thing with the, I don't even clean the brush or the sponge. I do the same thing with the orange, although lighter, right? So it's a lighter touch, it's a lighter tap. And you're just kind of blending it in. If you want a certain spot to be more rusty than the other, then you obviously would go over it with more orange than not. Let's say, for example, we wanted this top piece to be way more rusted, then you would add obviously more orange in that area. Okay, and then let's kind of see what we're looking like here just already. I mean, that's starting to look just like a rusted fence, just that quick and easy. And it's okay to see some of the silver. We already painted some of the brown on the back, so it almost looks like it's starting to rust a little bit. Obviously, if we want to fix that, we go through with the orange and add the orange to the back side. Nobody's really going to see the back side of the fence anyway, unless you've created your diorama that way or your vignette. And then so that is really it. Guys, there you go. That is a rusted fence. It's done in about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes tops. That's how you do the rusted fence with the solder. Okay guys, hopefully that helps you to understand how I went about making the fence. It's a very simple process. It looks pretty good. It still needs to dry. It'll darken up a little bit once it dries. If you don't like the color of it, you can certainly add more brown, more orange. a mixture of any other colors of paints that you would like to get the color that you're going for. But at the end of the day, once you put this down in a piece of foam, it looks like a pretty cool little fence. And you can make these as long or as short as obviously your vignette or your village. You don't have to color them at all. You can keep them completely silver. It looks like galvanized steel. You can paint them black, or your imagination is your only limitation. So hopefully this has helped. A lot of you had questions on how I did the fence. Well, you saw it firsthand exactly how I did it. It's a very simple process. The solder that I bought at home at Hobby Lobby was $20 for that big spool. Now that, I don't know how many fences or how many feet of fence that would make, but it obviously made plenty enough for me to do the Pennywise vignette. It made plenty enough for me to do the demonstration here, and I've still got plenty of it left to make other fences for other projects as we go forward. So pretty good deal when you think about it, and a lot cheaper than going out and buying pre-made fence. And to me, it looks just as good because you can tailor it to exactly the look that you're going for. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully if you enjoyed the video, click the like button and let me know that. If you have questions or comments, please leave those below and I'll get to you and answer all your questions and read all your comments. I enjoy reading them. And then also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing that. The channel is growing. I certainly appreciate all the support and in the views. Certainly keep me motivated to keep pushing out videos. So with that, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you real soon.